There's yet another flashpoint emerging in India's neighborhood. Not Nepal, but Maldives. The Maldivian parliament, as well as President Mohammad Muizzu's government, has recently passed a very controversial media regulation bill, what critics are calling a media control bill, an attempt to muzzle the press in Maldives. Now, what does this bill really entail? This media regulation bill gives a government-aligned body complete power and sweeping powers to control the press freedom in the country, ban or media operations, whether it's websites or channels, and even fine journalists thousands of dollars if they do not align with this law. Now, this bill is facing immense backlash back in Maldives, with opposition MPs, journalists, activists taking to the streets outside the parliament, as well as opposition MPs within the parliament were also taken out of the parliament during the vote. And now they have been detained, and there's been a lot of backlash on the streets. There were clashes between the police as well as these protesters, and this momentum is really growing. So a very important story in India's neighborhood and a very significant flashpoint. So to discuss this on NDTV, we have with us the Maldivian opposition leader and the chairperson of the Maldives Democratic Party, Fayyaz Ismail. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on NDTV. My first question really is to you, that the opposition, your party, as well as journalists, claim that this is an attempt by the Muizzu government to muzzle the press, whereas the government claims that this media regulation bill aims to fight disinformation, fake news. So what do you think is the real intent behind passing this media regulation bill?
Well, it's very, very clear the whole intention of the Muizzu government in passing this bill in a wholly unethical manner is in order to muzzle free speech. You would have probably gathered the flawed process through which this bill was passed. The government tried to show this as an independent members' initiative, but with the concerns of the journalists, the government didn't bring any meaningful changes to the bill. The bill was debated, passed in a hurried manner while the parliament was in recess in an extraordinary session, which was, we don't see the dire need for such a measure in the first place. If you look at the recent happenings in the Maldives, what the Muizzu government is trying to do is basically create a dictatorship. He has systematically eroded the safeguards under the constitution in terms of the checks and balances. A couple of months back, he brought a amendment to the constitution which gave the ruling party complete control over its MPs in the parliament. So basically the MPs, if they go against the party's whip line, they can be removed from parliament. The second thing that he did was to remove the very august, reputed Supreme Court judges when they tried to review the submission made by us against the party crossing amendment. And then they removed the judges under very silly pretexts. The third thing that he has done is basically try to muzzle the media. He came on a platter of lies, as you know. The one of the significant sort of premise was the India Out campaign. And he has consistently lied to the people. And we, until today, have a very free media in the Maldives. So in terms of, even if you look at other countries, because there's no civil liability as well. Yes, maybe we need certain regulations governing media, but what he has done here is basically muzzle the media, taken control of all the media houses under the politically assigned media commission.
Over the past 2 years, Maldives has seen an overhaul of various democratic institutions by the Muizzu government, and now we're seeing a crackdown on the media. Do you think these actions are, in a sense, going to roll back some of the reforms that were made in Maldives since 2008, and even lead to a Nepal-like situation where protests were able to topple the government there? Do you think a similar situation could take place here, which could topple the Muizzu government?
All those ingredients in Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, etc., exist in the Maldives currently. However, we are a very small community. We are a population of around 350,000 people. So that kind of protest movement is difficult in the Maldives. But this is a ticking time bomb. The government has gone out of its ways to portray that this bill does not hinder or restrict free speech, and especially for social media. But the bill very clearly includes social media also under the regulatory regime. Can it be toppled? I would say if the government continues down its current path of authoritarianism, and also coupled with the fact that the economy is doing very bad, people are having a very hard time. We may not see a situation like in Nepal or Bangladesh, but we are definitely going to see significant discontent and uprising. And I would say that Muizzu government, even though it thinks that it can, by controlling the levers of government, restrict the people, I don't think Maldivians will take that sitting down.
You mentioned that there is a lot of backlash and a lot of people are very upset about this bill. But do you think that there is widespread public sentiment, that a collective public sentiment against this bill, which could lead to a wider movement against this oppression of the media by the government, by the Muizzu government?
Definitely, that is the complete intention of President Muizzu. He knows that if there is a referendum taken at the moment, he will lose in a big way. People have lost all the trust in him. He's controlling the people through, in a very dire economic situation, through the largesse of the government by creating jobs through the state-owned companies, etc. That is the only thing basically keeping the people alive in a sense. The whole economy has collapsed. Our debt situation has escalated. He came on a premise that he will be able to tackle the difficult debt situation that we had, create a robust economy, etc., etc. And he also came on a platform that he will be very transparent, that he will give complete freedom to media and free speech. But all his actions through his control of parliament and the judiciary, we are now seeing is a complete backsliding to what we were 20 years back. And this is the last nail in the coffin, I would say, because at the end of the day, all these atrocities can only be brought out by when we have free speech and a free media. So it is very apparent his intention is to take Maldives down a path towards a complete dictatorial regime.
The government claims that this bill was essentially to regulate the media sphere, to combat disinformation, misinformation, and fake news. But the law fails to clearly really define fake news. And do you think that this bill was required? Do you think that there are safeguards already in place in Maldives to combat misinformation? Or do you agree with the government that such reforms, such regulations were needed?
I completely disagree with the government's position on this issue. Yes, there is a lot of disinformation. I think President Muizzu is the one who can really believe that, because that is how he came into power, by creating a lot of misinformation. However, there are regulatory mechanisms in place to deal with that. What he has done is not at all needed at this time, and this is a backsliding of democracy and free speech. Nothing else.
New Delhi, a crucial ally of Maldives, is keeping a close eye on the developments that are happening in Malé, and is quite concerned. So, what is your message as the leader of the opposition who's criticized this bill quite openly and is protesting against this bill? What is your message to a crucial and strategic ally like India?
Well, we are seeing our allies actually coming out with their concerns on this bill. The US Embassy in Maldives has already publicly stated its concern. The UK Embassy has today come up with a statement on that. Several international organizations are calling Dr. Muizzu to repeal this, etc., etc. So, very rightly, India has a crucial interest in the Maldives. And Maldives has a crucial interest in India being involved in this, in ensuring that Maldives is secure, safe, stable, and democratic nation. And India being one of the significant democracies in the world, we would expect that India to play its role in ensuring that there is no backsliding in the democratic gains that we have made in the last 2 decades. And I am very sure that the Indian government will impress upon the current government to restrain itself in these matters. And I hope that the message will be given clearly. And that is our hope, that India will continue to play a role in the development of the Maldives, and especially in protecting the rights of the Maldivians in terms of its democratic development.
Now, journalists are likely to appeal to the Supreme Court to help repeal this controversial media law. How do you think that this will go in the Supreme Court, given the fact that, as you mentioned, the Muizzu government did recently overhaul the Supreme Court, where various Supreme Court judges were also let go of? So what do you think is going to happen? Will the Supreme Court rule on the side of these journalists?
No, I highly doubt that the Supreme Court will rule against the government. You would see that from the submission that we made regarding the constitutional amendment on the party, switching of party at the Supreme Court. The new Supreme Court has not taken that issue up, not made a judgment on that. Recently, there was an MP from PNC who, according to the current regulation, has already lost his seat because of judgmental debts. The Supreme Court has basically, they are sitting on that. So we do not see much hope from the Supreme Court, because at the end of the day, their job is completely dependent on the supermajority in Parliament. So unfortunately, we do not see strong judges standing up to these draconian authoritarian regimes. And that is something that we will need to change going forwards when we are back in power. We need to bring more checks and balances where these independent institutions are actually really independent from the ruling party and the majority in Parliament. But nevertheless, we will continue that process.
My last question to you, Mr. Ismail, is that now that this media law is in effect, what is really the next step for the Maldivian Democratic Party and yourself, as well as the journalists and the activists who've been openly protesting against this bill? What is really the next step for Maldives?
Well, I think the safeguards given in the constitution currently is of no use, I would say, to the people, because Dr. Muizzu has basically railroaded it. So what is left for us is to continue to protest, continue to take these matters up with the international partners inside the country, etc. And as the largest opposition party, and also the journalists have stated, we are not going to accept that bill. We are going to continue as usual, and it's up to the government to come up with draconian measures. But we are going to continue to protest. We are going to not only protest on the media bill, but the entire constitution which Muizzu is trying to derail. So we are calling for a significant protest on the 3rd of October. And I believe that there will be a lot of support for that. And this will be to basically call on the government to restrain itself, go back to the democratic road, and ensure that those gains are protected.
Thank you, Mr. Ismail, for joining us on NDTV. We will keep a close eye on all the developments that are happening in Maldives with regards to the protests and this controversial media bill. This is Dishha Bagchi for NDTV.